Oh hey Edna, how you doing?
What's up guys, it's Drifts and Lifts here. Welcome back to the Drifts and Lifts Epic Volvo Drift YouTube channel. If you haven't clicked that subscribe button, please do. The amount of Volvo gravy that is getting poured today is in the milliliters. It's not that much today. We'll see how it goes though. Alright guys, so today I'm just gonna basically film whatever the hell I'm doing today. So we got Edna here, and if you look way the fuck over there, we got Miss Huff still chilling on my trailer. Haven't really done much with it. So Miss Huff has a bit of a problem. I might have mentioned this in the last video. Oh, this freaking door on Edna does not work. I think something in the linkage is disconnected. But the crank gear, the keyway for the crank gear that essentially lines up the crank pulley, there's a little keyway so the pulley doesn't slip. That broke off again. So you guys might remember at Grange in California there, that actually broke off on me because the crank bolt came loose and then it wiggled out and then it ended up snapping the keyway out. But this time the crank bolt was completely tight, so I don't know if just when I tightened it on there or maybe when Jake pulled it off the car at the wrecker, maybe he pried the crank pulley off and it snapped off the keyway or weakened it or something. I'm not too sure, so I got another keyway off another crank gear off my parts car. Actually, Tim is what I got that from, if you guys remember Tim. That car is actually going to be going to the scrapper real soon. I don't have enough room for it, so I need to make a bit of room for all these gosh darn Volvo projects. Okay, so guys, so what I'm going to do is take Edna, I got a bunch of tools in there, and I'm going to show you guys how to replace a crank gear on one of these cars. It's actually a pretty simple process. There's a few little things that might be a little difficult, but all in all, pretty easy. So we're gonna head over there in Edna and go fix Miss Huff, and then we'll see what fun stuff we can get to after that. Mrs. Edna, I'm gonna start Edna up and I'm gonna drive about 100 meters. I promise I'm not a lazy bastard. I just need to transport all these tools. Oh, and I just got some Loctite because I'm gonna Loctite that crank bolt in there again. I do not want that coming out. That could be detrimental to my health. Like a good old LH 2.4 car, she starts right up. Roll down this window. It's super hot in here. Man, it's almost shirtless weather. I'm ready to get a tan here. As you guys can see, I've been using this as a dog transportation car and it has dog hair everywhere now. That's okay. This car's a beater anyways. All right, begin our very long journey over to Miss Huff. Yeah, so this car's been pretty good so far, guys. Edna, I think actually maybe after I'm done this on Miss Huff today, I'll start gutting out Edna. I actually picked up a delete sheet, which is like an aluminum piece of sheet metal, so I can sunroof delete it. Because as you guys can see, the headliner's all torn out of this car and this stuff starts to flake out. And eventually like all this like orange dust will start falling over your hair and stuff, and it's just not a fun time. All right, so here we are, Miss Huff. Alright guys, so I already actually got started on this job, so I'm a little ways into it, but that's no big deal. I will give you guys kind of a rundown of what I've done already. So this is, you know, most of you guys already know how to do this, but for those of you who don't, this is basically all I'm doing is taking the timing belt off, and then I'm just going one little step farther. So as far as taking the timing belt off, it's kind of funny. I remember back when I first started working on cars and Volvos and stuff, like years ago, 7, 8 years ago. I remember like always thinking like the timing belt was such a difficult job, and I just kind of like made that up in my own head that it was actually difficult when it really wasn't. It's super simple. There's 2 timing marks. So you guys got the timing mark on your cam. This is an aftermarket IPD cam pulley, mind you. It's still gonna be the same thing. So if you look, there's that little dot right there. If we look at the timing cover, that little dot right back there, that is our timing mark for the cam gear. Now if we look on our, here we go. So here's the bottom timing cover for just the bottom down there for the bottom of the timing belt situation. So we flip this over like this. Here's our timing mark on this cover. So this cover is gonna end up sitting like this. And so what we're gonna do is you want this crank gear. So we're gonna find the timing mark on the crank gear, crank pulley, sorry. That's right there. So while this crank pulley is lined up with the 0 on the back cover, you're gonna want that cam gear to be lined up with that timing mark. And that means your car's at top dead center. So before you do any sort of work on the timing stuff, I would just line both of those up, make sure they're all aligned, and then you have a point to start from so you know how to time the car once you put the belt back on. But the thing is, if you take the belt off and you don't move the car at all, the gears aren't gonna move at all, so you should be able to slide the belt just right back on how it was. All right, so I already got a little ways through this, so I took off the top cover here. I took off the bottom cover. So now the next step is gonna be to take the timing belt, or sorry, actually, getting the crank pulley off was kind of a bitch, I'll tell you guys that. If you have a manual transmission car, you put it in 4th gear, lock the e-brake, and if you get a breaker bar on the crank pulley, sorry, on the crank bolt right here, that's a 24 mil socket, mind you. Usually you can break those loose pretty easily. Now, if you have an automatic car, I've actually never pulled one of these off an automatic car, so you guys are gonna have to let me know in the comments what you do. I'm pretty sure you need like a crank pulley holder tool of some sort. It's either that or you use an impact. But usually to get an impact in there, you're gonna have to take like the radiator out so you can slide it down in there. Or if you could somehow figure out a really long extension or something, to get this crank pulley and bolt off of Tim, I actually used my DeWalt impact and that did break it loose. So that's cool. All right guys, so the next step is going to be, once you get the crank pulley off and this bottom cover off, this bottom cover is only 2 bolts. So it's this one right here and this one, so that's gonna be a 12 and a 10. Those are these ones right here. Obviously, sorry, you gotta take the belts off as well. That's gonna be another thing, which is really easy. You guys all know how to loosen up a tensioner on the alternator and loosen the tensioner on the power steering pulley. Then the belts will come off, then you can take the crank pulley off. I apologize, I'm all over the place right here, but you guys get the gist of it. So our next step is going to be taking the actual timing belt off. And I know that this car is all lined up timing wise because I haven't touched it since I lined them up right at our timing marks. So what I'm gonna do is you're gonna loosen this bolt right, or this nut right here, and then I'll show you guys what we're gonna do. All right guys, this is gonna be really difficult to do with only 2 hands here. But what I'm gonna do is I want to push our tensioner back so we can get our timing belt off. So what we're gonna do is, I do it this way. There's many other ways you could do it. If you look right here, I'm able to push that tensioner. It's already maxed out because this belt is so tight. It's almost maxed out. So I'm just gonna push it like that, and I'm just gonna put the camera down and I'm gonna tighten that 15mm nut. Okay, so here's our new crank gear. As you guys can see, you see this little keyway here? So that keyway on that crank gear is actually gonna line up with that slot in our crank pulley. And then there's also this keyway on the inside of the gear. That's gonna line up with the crank shaft. And that's gonna slide on there. There's only one way to put it on, so it's pretty hard to mess up. So I'm gonna take the belt off first. I'm gonna have to put the camera down for that. Now that the belt's loose, it's really easy. You just kind of wiggle it off. Then I'm gonna, literally that crank gear actually just slides out. The only thing holding it on is the crank pulley when that's all bolted on. So give me a sec here guys. Okay, so our belt is off now. I'm just gonna slide down here and wiggle our crank pulley, crank gear loose. Boom, that's off. And you're gonna wanna leave that, that shim at the back there. All that really does is keep the timing belt from kind of staying in its position, I guess you could say. So now that we got this off, let's take a look here. So there you go guys, that keyway did snap off. Kind of lame, I don't know why, but it's probably because it got weakened in some sort of way at the junkyard, or us taking it off or something. So this one is good. That's not too bad. So I'm just gonna slide that back on there. I'm gonna leave that washer shim thing that's on the back there. And this one also goes in the front. So once you have the crank gear on, this one will actually go like this. And it basically gives it just a little valley for the timing belt to ride in, so it doesn't get caught on anything. So I'm gonna do that real quick. There we go, so crank gear's on. Now before I put this last shim on, I'm gonna put the timing belt on. Then we can just start reassembly essentially. So it'll go timing belt, and then we'll put this washer on, then we'll put the bottom cover on, then we'll put our crank pulley on, then we will put our belts on, then we'll put our top timing cover on. All right guys, got a little ahead of myself there, but you all know how it goes. So yeah, I got the, as you can see, I was actually using the +5 setting. I forgot about that. So this timing mark is lined up there. As you guys can see, the bottom timing mark, that white line is lined up with the 0 on the back of the pulley there. So that is pretty much good to go. I just got to really crank that crank bolt in now. So I put a bit of Loctite in it, I snugged it in there. I'm actually going to take the breaker bar and crank it in. Then I'm going to tighten up my power steering tensioner, and then we're pretty much good to go. So I'm gonna bring this by Dan next week, and because when he was resetting the timing after we got this car running again, the crank pulley was actually slipped past its normal point, so he couldn't time it properly. So now that I have this all lined up and it's good to go, I'm gonna bring it back to him. He's gonna get it all timed up for me. Timed just how the tune was when he first tuned it. So that's exciting. This stuff will be back in action, and we can probably take this thing to some fun place and do a drifting video pretty soon. All right, so that's pretty much done. I'm gonna do a bit of work on Edna. I think I'm gonna start stripping it out, maybe take the headliner out and the carpet and stuff like that. So let's do a bit of weight reduction. All right, so I just started pulling the carpet out of Edna here, and look what I found, guys. Bunch of rust here. If I keep poking, I think this will go through right here. So this car started to rust. Like, we got some right here, a little bit forming right there. Actually, that's an interesting spot for it to rust, believe it or not, up in there. It also looks like up there a little bit too. Okay, so this car is not perfectly clean. It does have some rust, like most of the 80s cars at this point. Just figured I'd point that out so you guys don't hate me for river beating or rallying this car. It's not a perfectly clean 740, just so you guys know. But I'm not gonna like destroy it right off the bat. This thing's gonna have lots of fun before any destroying happens. So actually, it's crazy, those front carpets, guys, oh, here, I'll show you something interesting. So here's the carpet that I pulled out. So this is the one from the passenger side. Would have been this one right here. It's actually fully waterlogged. There's tons of water in here. Yeah, so it's super moist and damp. So honestly, if you guys are kind of like want to make your 740 into a performance car, and you don't really care about your carpet, I would recommend taking the carpet and this foam out almost every time, just because it fills with water. Like almost every time that I've pulled this out of a 740, it has a bunch of water filled up in it. And I've said this in other videos that I believe this is the reason why these cars rust out from the inside out, basically. Just a bunch of water holds in the carpet and the foam, and it slowly just, you know, eats the floorboards out. So that really rusty wagon I owned back in the day, the A-Tractor, that car's carpets were fucking full of water. So just a little hint for you guys that are building your 740s, maybe if you're planning on gutting the carpet, do that ASAP, because any minute that you haven't gutted it is probably rotting it out even more. So I'm gonna keep on gutting the rear carpet, then I'm gonna take the stuff out of the trunk, and then hopefully I'll get to the sunroof as well. That's a pretty big weight reduction. You get about 45 to 50 pounds from that. Then I got to do all the AC stuff under the hood, which will take a little while for sure. But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much all we're gonna gut out of this car. I'm not gonna do the rear seats because I want people to be able to come back here. Yeah, because back seats are just fun to have in a car like this. So hopefully we can get about like 200 to 250, 300 pounds out of it, just with these minor things. And then at least it'll lighten it up a little bit. It'll raise the car a little bit, so it's easier to, or it'll raise the car just because it's lighter, and we want to raise the car because we're doing off-road things. So yeah, let's keep on gutting. All right guys, so about like, I don't know, 45 minutes of messing around here. There's my Scooby boy. What's up, dude? And okay, so I got a good pile of weight reduction going here so far. We got charcoal canister, carpet, foam underneath the carpet. I took all the AC compressor, the AC fan. So far that's about it. I took out the antenna in the trunk, all the stuff in the trunk. So we probably got about 150 pounds out, maybe not quite. So now the next step, I'm actually running out of time today. I gotta go to dinner at my parents' house. So I'm gonna postpone this till tomorrow, and I'm gonna finish this off with the sunroof delete. Then we're probably going to, I need to find somebody to weld the diff. So I think I'll give my buddy Aaron Glendon a shout, or maybe Jake's in town. I'm not too sure if he is yet. Haven't really asked him. So yeah, we're so far so good. I'm gonna take this for a little cruise right now. I may as well bring the GoPro with me and go eat some dinner. And then yeah, tomorrow I'm gonna finish this off and we'll go have some fun in this car. So stay tuned for that, guys. All right, so literally just driving this car down the road right now. It feels more nimble, like you can tell. It accelerates a little easier. And I forgot to shut my hood, so I should probably do that before I go too fast and the hood flies up. Alrighty, so it is the next day now. I just gutted all the sunroof stuff out of Edna here. So as you guys can see, I have a tire on top of the roof. It's basically a siliconed, a piece of aluminum sheet metal in there. And I'm just waiting for it to dry, and I didn't want it to pop off before it dries. So that'll be good in a bit here. If we look inside Edna, let's take a little peek. So I think we got about 150 pounds out of her. I also took all the AC stuff. And so it's crazy how, like, if you remove stuff from the front ends of these cars, they do raise up actually a little bit. Even if I put my foot on this car and just press down a tiny bit, like the ride height goes down quite a bit. So I'd say, like, say 30 pounds of pressure, you know, lowers half an inch or whatever. So I have this big, you know, big collection of stuff in the back of the Cummins right now. I think I'm going to take this to the metal recycling place, and we're going to see how much all this weighs, just out of curiosity, and at the same time I can get rid of it all. So we're going to do that, go for a little cruise in the Cummins, and then I think once it's silicone dries, me and Stevie are going to go for a little rip up his road. This car still doesn't have a welded diff, so it's still not too fun, but I don't know, we'll go mess around, have a bit of fun, and that'll basically be a wrap up of the video. All right guys, so we're on the scale right now. This is with me in the truck, obviously. So we're at 5,260 pounds. So we're gonna get rid of all this stuff that we gutted out of Edna, and then we're gonna see how much we weigh after. Okay guys, so now we're at 5,120. So just over 100 pounds, I guess. It's nothing too crazy. Or sorry, what was it before? Okay, I don't know. I forget what it was before, but decent amount of weight. All right, so we are in Edna now. Oh man, I actually love the sunroof delete, just because it actually gives me more headroom. If you guys look, my head is like really close to the roof. Now with the sunroof, it's actually touching. So this gives me a lot more headroom. And when I wear a helmet, I actually need the sunroof to be like this, or else I'm like crushed in like this. All right guys, so we're just hanging out at Square Body Steve's house here. This is a Toyota that he just picked up. This thing's actually super sick. Yeah, old school 1986 or 85, 22 RE. I like this little visor he's got on it. And actually, if you guys look over here, My man Square Body Steve just picked up a Volvo of his own. So this is Stevie's turbo wagon. You guys can see it's got a side pipe. I actually sold the wheels on this car to some kid that owned it before Stevie. Right now he's doing a turbo swap on it because someone just put on a shitty turbo and it was smoking really bad. So yeah, it's not exactly what you want, but we should be able to get this sorted out for him and get a new turbo on it eventually. This car is pretty cool actually. It's pretty clean, believe it or not. It's got these like cloth front seats in it. Check out that MAF just sitting there. This is kind of interesting. There's like a black panel on the bottom. Nothing really to this car. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty much bone stock other than like a boost controller and I think it has a welded diff maybe actually. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it does. So, pretty cool car. So I'm stoked for when Steve gets this new turbo on it. We'll probably go out drifting with it or something like that. Steve's a big truck dude, so you know he has tons of trucks and that's what he's about. But so it'd be cool to see what he can do in a car. He can drive. I've seen him drive before. He knows what he's doing. Oh, my tire is really flat on this tire. Oh no. Oh, and it is leaking right now. So it looks like we're not gonna be drifting right now. That's too bad. And I'm gonna have to drive home on these 760 wheels with probably a flat tire by the time we get home. I'm gonna have to swap those out for something. So I think I'll leave the video right there, guys. Looks like we're not going drifting in this thing today after all. So I apologize for that. I'm gonna get this sorted out and then on next video we will figure something out. I'm still gonna put bigger tires on it. Oh man, this is gonna really hurt the Volvo Pierce right here. Just grimy silicone delete plate. I think I'll leave you there, guys. Yeah, more fun stuff to come for the channel. Stay tuned. You know how it is. Volvo gravy everywhere. Like and subscribe for cups full of Volvo gravy. Pour it all over my face. Peace out.